Welcome to Nazir Fears. Like, subscribe, share, and click that bell icon.
Story 1. The Last Passenger. He thought it was just another late-night ride, until he realized his passenger never existed. It was just after midnight when Kamran's taxi rolled out of the city and into the winding silence of the rural highway. Rain pounded the windshield in chaotic rhythms, the wipers dragging across the glass with a slow, tired groan. He'd been driving for 12 hours straight, eyes burning, back aching, the neon signs and streetlights blurring into streaks of dull color. Most nights, he stayed inside the city, picking up drunks, night shift workers, and lonely travelers trying to escape something. But tonight felt different. Tonight the air smelled strange, heavy, metallic, like a storm that never quite arrived. The ride request had come through the app at 12:13 a.m. The pickup location was at the edge of town, near the old industrial district that had been shut down for years. Kamran hesitated. Everyone knew that part of the city was basically abandoned, except for a few squatters and stray dogs. But the fare was good, unusually high, in fact, triple the normal rate, so he accepted. When he arrived, the road was quiet, wet, and gleaming under the flicker of a broken street light. The location pin showed an alleyway between two crumbling warehouses. Kamran leaned forward, squinting through the rain. He could barely make out a tall, slender figure standing at the end of the alley, half hidden in the shadows. The figure raised one arm, signaling. Kamran unlocked the doors. "For the fare named Zara," he called out through the cracked window. The figure nodded slowly and stepped forward. A woman, maybe in her late 20s, pale, hair slick with rain, wearing a long black coat that glistened under the dim light. She slid into the back seat without saying a word, her perfume faintly floral, but tinged with something sharp, like old iron. Kamran glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Where to?" he asked. Her eyes met his in the mirror, dark, unreadable. "North Ridge," she said softly. His fingers paused over the GPS. North Ridge was 30 kilometers away, an isolated stretch of road that led toward the mountains. Hardly anyone went there this time of night. But he needed the money, so he nodded and started driving. The road out of the city was empty, save for the occasional passing truck. The hum of the engine filled the silence. The woman stared out the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. Kamran tried to make small talk, but she didn't respond, not once. After about 15 minutes, he glanced again into the mirror, but her face was gone. His stomach dropped. He turned his head slightly. She was still there, but sitting differently now, closer to the middle of the seat, her face half hidden by her hair. It was subtle, but unsettling. He told himself he was just tired. The road ahead shimmered in the rain, and the yellow lines seemed to twist. Then she whispered something. "Do you know what happens on this road?" Kamran's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer. Her reflection in the mirror tilted its head slightly, but her real body hadn't moved. His heart began to pound. He turned the radio on just to break the silence, but the speakers hissed with static. Then beneath the static came faint voices. "Turn back, turn back." Kamran quickly shut it off. "Damn cheap signal," he muttered. But when he looked up again, she was staring straight into the mirror. "Not many drivers go this way," she said quietly. "They say it's cursed." He forced a chuckle. "Cursed? I've heard worse." Her lips curled slightly, almost a smile, but not quite. "They vanish she said. The ones who don't listen. Cameron felt the temperature in the car drop. His breath fogged the glass for the first time that night. He reached for the heater controls, but the dial didn't respond. The rain outside stopped suddenly. The wipers dragged across dry glass, screeching. Cameron frowned. The storm had been heavy just seconds ago. Now everything was still. Even the air seemed wrong. He looked out the window. The landscape had changed. The road was the same, but the signs, the trees, the distant city glow, all gone. There was nothing but dark emptiness, stretching endlessly in every direction. "What the hell?" he whispered. The woman leaned forward slightly, her voice low and calm. "You missed the turn." Cameron checked the GPS. The signal was gone. No map, no location, just a blank screen. "I didn't see any turn," he said, glancing in the mirror again. But when he did, she wasn't there. His chest went cold. He turned around. The back seat was empty. The coat, the seat belt, everything untouched, but her faint scent still lingered in the air. Cameron's hands shook as he gripped the wheel. "No, no, no," he muttered, eyes darting to the side mirrors. Then a whisper, soft, right next to his ear. "You missed the turn." He jerked the wheel instinctively. The car swerved, tires screeching against the wet asphalt that somehow was wet again. The headlights caught a figure standing in the middle of the road. It was her. Cameron slammed the brakes, the car skidding sideways before coming to a halt. His chest heaved. The woman stood motionless, her eyes reflecting the headlights like glass. Slowly she lifted her hand and pointed toward the woods. Cameron froze. He wanted to turn around, drive back, anything. But the engine had died. He tried the ignition. Click, again. Nothing. The woman began walking toward the trees, her movements slow, unnatural, her feet barely touching the ground. "Hey, wait!" he shouted, fumbling for his phone. No signal. He opened the door. The cold hit him like a slap. The air smelled of iron again. He followed her into the darkness, each step crunching against the gravel until the road disappeared behind him. The trees closed in. The moonlight flickered through the branches. Ahead, she stood at the edge of a small clearing. An old half-buried taxi cab, rusted, vines growing through the shattered windows. Cameron stopped. His heart hammered against his ribs. The car was his. Or rather, it looked exactly like his. Same model, same dented bumper, same taxi number printed faintly on the side. He stepped closer, hand trembling as he touched the door. The metal was ice cold. He looked through the cracked glass. There was someone inside, a driver, and when the moonlight hit the face, it was him. Cameron stumbled backward, tripping over roots. The woman turned slowly toward him, her eyes hollow now, her skin pale as paper. "You missed the turn," she said again, her voice now layered, as if many voices spoke through her. The forest echoed with faint whispers, hundreds of them, repeating her words. He looked around. Dozens of old taxis lay scattered in the trees, covered in rust and moss, some overturned, some half sunk into the earth, all of them identical. Cameron turned and ran, sprinting through the darkness until he saw the faint glow of his car's headlights through the trees. He jumped inside, slammed the door, and jammed the keys into the ignition. The engine roared to life. The GPS screen flickered back on, location found, but the map showed nothing familiar, just a single glowing road labeled Return Route, One Way. He drove, fast. The trees blurred past. The woman's reflection appeared in the mirror again, watching him calmly. "Where are you going?" she whispered. He didn't answer. He pressed harder on the gas. The speedometer climbed. 100, 120, 140. The road twisted sharply. He turned the wheel too late. The car hit the guardrail, spun, and crashed into darkness. Silence. Hours later, a passing trucker spotted the wreck. The police found Kamran's body slumped in the driver's seat, eyes wide open, mouth slightly parted, as if he'd been trying to say something. The strange part? The passenger seat was soaked in rainwater, but it hadn't rained all night. And when they checked the app records, there was no ride request, no Zara, no trace of any passenger ever entering that car. But a week later, another taxi driver received a request from the same location, 12:13 a.m., pickup near the abandoned warehouses. He accepted it, and somewhere, far down the highway, a pale woman in a black coat raised her hand under a flickering streetlight. Story 2. The Midnight Fair. He thought she was running from someone, until he realized she was running from the night itself. The city never truly slept. It just changed faces. By day, it was a blur of horns, voices, and chaos. But after midnight, the streets emptied. The buildings seemed to lean closer, and the silence grew heavy enough to feel alive. For Faisal, the quiet hours were his time. The night shift paid better, and he liked the solitude. People who rode at that hour rarely talked, and when they did, it was usually something they wished no one would remember. That night began like any other. His dashboard clock read 12:47 a.m. as he sipped lukewarm tea and scrolled through the ride requests. The rain from earlier had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective. He parked under the yellow glow of a gas station sign, half hoping the night would end soon. Then a new fare appeared. Passenger, Nida. Pickup, Old Bellevue Road. Faisal frowned. Bellevue Road was near the outskirts, an area half demolished for redevelopment years ago. But the request had a 5-star rating and a generous tip already pre-added. He accepted. When he arrived, the road was darker than he remembered. Half the streetlights were dead. The rest flickered like they were about to give up. His headlights swept over broken walls, old billboards, and the remnants of construction equipment abandoned mid-project. Then from the mist, a woman appeared, waving one arm weakly. She was drenched from head to toe, her dark hair sticking to her face, her dress torn slightly at the sleeve. She looked exhausted, frightened. Faisal lowered the window. "You're Nida?" She nodded quickly. "Please, can we go, now?" Her voice trembled, and she kept glancing over her shoulder into the darkness. He unlocked the door without another question. She climbed in, slammed it shut, and whispered, "Just drive." "Where to?" She hesitated, then said, "Anywhere far from here, just go." The urgency in her tone made him comply without argument. The tires splashed through puddles as he accelerated down the road. He could see her reflection in the rearview mirror, pale, restless eyes darting between windows. "Is someone after you?" he asked. She didn't answer at first. Then softly, almost as if to herself, she said, "He doesn't like when people leave after dark." Faisal frowned. "Who?" She turned her head slightly, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "The man by the well." He waited for her to explain, but she said nothing else, just stared ahead, her fingers gripping the seatbelt tightly. The city lights faded behind them as they entered the highway. It was completely deserted. The rain had stopped, but the clouds hung low, heavy and unmoving. A thin fog began creeping across the asphalt, curling beneath the street lamps like smoke. Faisal adjusted the radio, hoping for some music to cut through the tension, but all he got was static. Then through the static, a faint voice whispered, almost like a recording from far away, "Don't let her leave." He switched it off immediately, heart pounding. "These old stations," he muttered, forcing a shaky laugh. But Nida's reflection didn't move. Her lips were parted, as if she'd heard it, too. Minutes passed. The GPS glitched once, then froze completely. The digital map on his phone flickered, showing their location deep inside a blank gray zone. No roads, no names, just an empty space. "Must be bad signal," he said nervously. Nida whispered, "It's not the signal." He swallowed hard. "You mean, he doesn't like people leaving," she said again, louder this time. "He watches the road after midnight. If he calls your name, don't answer." Faisal felt his skin crawl. "Who's he?" She didn't reply. Her face was pale now, her eyes unfocused, like she was listening to something he couldn't hear. Then, the headlights flickered. The engine stuttered. The taxi slowed to a crawl despite his foot pressing hard on the pedal. "Not now," he hissed. The dashboard lights blinked erratically, and for a moment the interior was plunged into total darkness. When the lights came back, the road was different. The highway was gone. The city lights behind them had vanished completely. The road now ran through endless fields. Black soil, no landmarks, no sound but the hum of the engine. Nida sat perfectly still. "What's going on?" Faisal whispered. Her voice was low, trembling. "He's here." "Who's here?" She slowly raised one trembling hand and pointed out the window. Faisal turned his head. In the field to their right stood a figure, tall, wearing something dark and wet, maybe a coat. He couldn't see a face. The man's head tilted slowly toward them as the taxi passed. Faisal looked back at the road and froze. The same figure was now standing in the middle of the lane ahead. He slammed the brakes, but the car didn't stop. The tires skidded uselessly on the slick surface, and the figure didn't move, just stood there, arms hanging limp. The headlights illuminated its face, or what should have been a face. Instead, there was only shadow, like the light refused to touch it. "Don't stop," Nida screamed suddenly. "Keep driving." He pressed the accelerator again, heart pounding. The car surged forward, passing straight through the figure. Or so it seemed. The body vanished the moment they reached it, leaving only a shock of cold air that filled the cabin. Faisal gasped, gripping the wheel tightly. What the hell was that? But Nida didn't answer. When he looked into the mirror, her seat was empty. His blood ran cold. He turned around. Nothing. Just the impression of her wet coat on the seat. The taxi's headlights flickered again. For a split second, he saw movement in the side mirror. A pale shape sitting directly behind him. He froze. Slowly he turned his head, but the back seat was still empty. A whisper brushed his ear. "He doesn't like when they leave." Faisal's breath hitched. The sound came from the passenger seat this time. He turned. Nida sat there, drenched again, staring straight ahead. Her face was expressionless, her eyes dark and hollow. You were in the back," he stammered. She didn't respond. Her lips moved slowly, silently forming words. He leaned closer, trying to hear, and then he heard the sound. A distant, wet, dragging noise coming from outside the car, like something heavy being pulled along the asphalt. The engine sputtered again. The fog thickened until he could barely see the road. Shapes seemed to move within it, tall, thin, shifting silhouettes walking parallel to the taxi. He drove faster, desperate to escape. Nida turned toward him, her face inches away now. "You shouldn't have taken this road." "What road?" he shouted. "The GPS. Doesn't matter," she whispered. "This is his route now." The car jolted violently as something hit the side. Faisal screamed, jerking the wheel. A dark smear slid across the window like a handprint. Then, in the reflection of the glass, he saw her face, not her real one, but something twisted, pale, with black eyes and a wide, unnatural smile. He slammed the brakes. The car spun, everything blurred, fog, headlights, motion, then stillness. When Faisal opened his eyes, the car was parked perfectly at the edge of Bellevue Road again. His hands were trembling. His watch said 12:47 a.m., the same time he'd started the ride. He looked around. The streets were dry now. The fog was gone. The back seat was empty. His phone buzzed. A notification. Ride completed. Passenger, Nida. Fare received. But when he opened the app, there was no record of the trip. No payment, no GPS trail, nothing. The next morning, the police found an abandoned taxi half a mile from that road. Empty, engine still running. Faisal was never seen again, and a week later, another driver received a ping from the same area. Pickup. Nida. Old Bellevue Road. 12:47 a.m. Story 3. The Fare That Never Paid. He thought it was just another passenger, until he realized he was driving a ghost who hadn't finished her ride. The night was colder than usual, a kind of chill that seemed to crawl through the vents and settle deep in your bones. Rizwan had been driving for nearly 10 hours straight, his eyes dry and red, his throat sore from too many cups of cheap tea. He told himself he'd finish one last ride before heading home. Just one more. It was 2:13 a.m. when the request appeared. Pickup. Maple Street Cemetery Gate. He stared at it, frowning. It had to be a mistake. No one booked rides from there. It was an old graveyard on the city's edge, locked at night, forgotten except by drunks and daredevil teens. But the app showed a verified user with a photo and full name, Mina Farouk. The request came with a double fare bonus. Rizwan hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "Easy money," he muttered, tapping an accept. The streets grew emptier as he neared the cemetery. Even the dogs had gone quiet. The moon hung low and swollen, lighting up the wet asphalt. When he reached the gate, the iron bars loomed tall, casting crooked shadows across the taxi's hood. Then he saw her. A woman stood near the gate, dressed in a white coat, her long hair tied loosely, a black purse slung over her shoulder. She looked perfectly ordinary, except for how still she was, standing motionless in the mist, staring down at her phone. Rizwan rolled down the window. "Mina Farouk?" She looked up, smiled faintly, and nodded. "Yes. Thank you for coming." Her voice was calm, polite, with an accent that didn't quite belong to the city. She opened the back door and slid in. The faint scent of jasmine perfume filled the car, oddly soothing against the night's silence. "Where to?" he asked, glancing at the rearview mirror. "Home," she said softly. "It's on Hillcrest Avenue." He nodded and began driving. The GPS guided him toward the hills, past rows of shuttered stores and empty streets. The city seemed to dissolve behind them. For a while, neither spoke. He was too tired for small talk, and she seemed lost in thought, her gaze fixed outside the window. But something about her reflection in the mirror unsettled him. It was faint, almost transparent against the dark seats, like the glass couldn't fully catch her image. He shook his head, dismissing the thought. The long hours were getting to him. "You drive at this hour often?" she asked suddenly, her voice low. Yeah, he replied. Less traffic, easier money, people at night. They're usually quiet. She smiled faintly. Yes, the night hides things. He chuckled nervously. You could say that. Minutes passed. The radio flickered between static and faint music, the same few words looping. Don't look back. Don't look back. Rizwan switched it off. Old stations, he muttered. Maina leaned forward slightly. Do you believe that some roads keep going, even when you stop driving? He glanced at her reflection again. Her face was unreadable, eyes dark and deep. I don't know what you mean. She smiled. You will. The road curved sharply, and for the first time he realized they'd left the main route. The GPS arrow spun aimlessly. No signal. The street signs had vanished. The houses, too. Only trees now, tall, skeletal, and whispering against the wind. He slowed the car. I think we missed the turn. It's fine. She interrupted softly. Just keep going. We're close. Her tone had changed. Lower. Firmer. Almost commanding. Something about it froze him. Against his better judgment, he kept driving. The air inside the taxi grew colder. His breath fogged the windshield slightly. The headlights stretched far into the darkness, but the road ahead looked wrong. Too narrow. Too long. He adjusted the mirror again and froze. Mina was no longer sitting straight. Her head was tilted down, her hair falling forward like a curtain. Her hands lay flat on her knees, motionless. He swallowed hard. You okay, miss? No answer. He turned slightly in his seat and gasped. Her eyes were wide open, staring blankly ahead, unfocused. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Then a faint whisper escaped her throat, like a breath caught between worlds. Almost home. Rizwan slammed the brakes. The taxi skidded to a halt, tires screeching. What the hell? When he looked back, she was gone. The back seat was empty. The door hadn't opened. There was no sound, just the faint smell of her perfume, still hanging in the air. His pulse thundered in his ears. No, no, no. He grabbed his phone, tried reopening the app, but it had frozen on a blank screen, the same faint spinning circle, looping endlessly. Then through the windshield he saw something. Ahead on the road stood a small house. Old wooden, windows glowing dim yellow. Smoke drifted lazily from the chimney. And standing on the porch was Mina. She was watching him, smiling. Rizwan blinked. She raised her hand and waved once. Slowly. He couldn't breathe. His hands trembled on the wheel. He looked away for a split second. When he looked back, the house was gone. Only the road remained. The car engine sputtered once, then died. Total silence. He sat there for what felt like hours until the dawn light began to break through the trees. When he finally restarted the car, the road behind him was gone. Just fog and shadows. He made it home sometime after sunrise. The ride had disappeared from his app, but his wallet showed a new transaction. Payment received. Mina Farouk. He didn't tell anyone. He just stopped driving at night. But a week later, he got a call from another driver friend, panicked. Why, you ever pick up a woman named Mina? White coat, long hair. Rizwan froze. Why? The man's voice shook. I got a booking, same pickup, Maple Street Cemetery. She sat in the back, said she was heading home to Hillcrest Avenue. Bro, she never reached, and now my app won't close. The line went dead. Rizwan opened his phone. His screen flickered once, then showed a new request. Pickup, Maple Street, Cemetery Gate. Passenger, Mina Farouk, 2:13 a.m. His breath caught in his throat. The same time, the same name. and before he could decline the ride, the car engine started by itself.